Every beep at the checkout reminds us of something we often take for granted: that food will be there, ready and waiting, securely packaged, priced, and plentiful. But behind those shelves lies a complex web of systems, policies, and people working to ensure that food is accessible, affordable, and safe for everyone. In this episode, we explore food security, not just as a global issue, but as a territorial challenge. What happens when climate shock hits agricultural supply chains? How do rising costs and geopolitical shifts affect what ends up on our plates? And most importantly, what can public administrations do to respond? Because food security doesn't just happen in fields and factories. It's part of a wider system. It happens where policies are made, where communities mobilize, and where innovation meets local needs. Welcome to episode 4 of Where It All Happens, a Territories in Action podcast. My name is Maria Marquez, and I invite you once again to discover cities, regions, and places looking to innovate. In this specific case, looking on how to guarantee our access to healthy and affordable food. In this episode, we'll hear from the people and places shaping the future of how Europe eats, from urban farming to digital monitoring, or from regional food strategies to cross-border collaborations. We'll explore the role of innovation in the food supply chain. As regular listeners will know, 2025 has seen the launch of an ambitious EU initiative, the Preparatory Action on Innovation for Place-Based Transformation. Across Europe, 200 territories have come together under this program to explore how local assets and innovation can drive meaningful responses to today's most urgent issues. Among those issues is food security. In this episode, we delve into how participating regions are using this initiative to pioneer smart, localized solutions that ensure no one is left behind at the table. Joining us now is Carles Ferreiro. He's the Economic Development Director at Viladecans City Council, and he's going to tell us a little more about how Catalonia region is tackling food security through place-based innovation. Carles, welcome.
Hello, good to be here.
Thank you for joining us. So food security can sound like an abstract idea to some people, but in Catalonia, you're leading. You're making it concrete with a very local and very real initiative, Agro Delta Lab. Can you start by telling us a little about what you're doing there?
Well, here the challenges are basically how do we tackle the issue of food security and sustainability from a comprehensive perspective. And then we know that's not easy, even though in Viladecans, we are a city right outside the Barcelona, within the metropolitan area. We're about 25 minutes from the city center by public transportation, so we're really close. And we have about 500 hectares of arable land, which is mainly horticulture. So that creates a lot of potential. But we know that we can't really achieve our goals without proper innovation. So we have created the AgroDelta Lab, which is an experimental space, an experimentation space, which basically has two prongs. One which is more tech-based, kind of a living lab kind of approach, and another one which is more regulatory, kind of a sandbox. I'm sure we will get into it.
So if people would need to imagine what this space looks like, can you describe it a little bit?
So the space itself, the lab is really the land itself. So we have all of these hectares of both agricultural land that is being used in open air, and also some that is done under glass houses or greenhouses, and we are producing product year round, different types of crops. And a lot of demand for fresh produce from the 5 million of inhabitants that we have around. So we have lots of local producers that are mainly professional and large producers, but they are not able to basically access or develop in their full potential from an innovation perspective because of many concerns, and mainly those are regulatory. So what we're doing is we're putting together these local producers with startups and with local companies in order to basically connect them and enable them to put these innovations into action.
So you're basically turning this area into an innovation playground, right?
That's right, because the idea is to basically generate more production because we definitely need to eat, and we need to do it more sustainably. And also in this land, we also need to coexist with other uses, and mainly the natural environment, because we have a natural reserve also within the area. So we are working on three areas of focus. One, which is intensive agriculture, intensification, sustainable intensification, which is basically precision agriculture and the intensive use of technology to for horticulture. We also have another area of focus, which is regenerative agriculture, which is hoping to develop um, more quality of the soil and obviously increase biodiversity while we sustain and maintain agricultural practices. And another one, which is the development of nature-based solutions to manage the land itself and the coexistence with the natural spaces.
Very interesting. And what makes this initiative different from a typical regional food policy?
Well, I guess the fact that we're on the land, right? We have the connection with the local producers, and this forces us or enables us to work in a pure quadruple helix kind of environment, meaning a public, private, people partnership, which is necessary in order to take some of these initiatives forward. The interesting thing is that producers are so interested because they're so close to the urban environment. They're very interested in developing relationships with schools, with hospitals, with distributors, with shops, with restaurants. And therefore, it is not only about production, but the entire value chain and about how to bring innovation of this, low emissions food all the way to the plate, to the fork, right?
Yeah, given getting results from these type of initiatives really show us how important collaboration is in all parties. So, looking into the future, what's the bigger goal here?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. Why are we doing this, right?
Yeah.
So as I mentioned, the region of Barcelona has 5 million people. So there's a high demand. In the best scenario, we're talking about that in the proximity of this region, we're feeding about maybe 7% of the local needs for fresh produce. So definitely that needs to improve. So how do we do that while at the same time we reduce emissions, knowing that agriculture is a big generator of emissions? And how do we and do so in a way that it generates economic opportunities, social opportunities, and engage in awareness of what it means to grow food, and what it means to grow local food, seasonal food, and in a way that is helps us with our health and with our well-being and with a deeper connection with the land, right? Because in the end, sometimes we forget, when we live in our cities and our apartments, that that we also belong to the land. So the lab is trying to tackle all of those issues, the issues around sustainability, the issues around economic development, and the issues around social and or social development, and also kind of understanding of the place where we belong and strengthening that connection.
Right. So, but this isn't easy. Let's talk about the challenges and the legislation. What challenges are you finding there?
Right. Well, we were mentioning before, that Agro-Delta Lab has basically a twofold approach. On the one hand, it's a living lab, and as such, it's about connecting innovation to producers. Um, and it's quite conventional, while very challenging, because there's these three levels of the areas of focus we just mentioned a few minutes ago. But on the other hand, it's also a regulatory experimentation space. And this experimentation space at this level means that we're going to have to tackle all the regulations that they are at the local level. So there may be about zoning laws and about basically what can and cannot be done in this space from a building and land use perspective. But also we have connections with an airport, which means that we have national laws that we have to tackle. And I mentioned before that we have we are side by side with a natural reserve and an area of special protection for birds. And those are all regulated by the European level. So if we want to be able to increase agricultural activity while at the same time respecting and understanding how do we live with all these other uses of the territory, we need to do so by changing the regulation. And that's where it comes, this idea of experimenting and basically finding this sandbox environment is going to be helpful.
So at the end, we're looking at a joint effort, and if this works, then we'll all need to push policy-wise, legislation-wise, and people-wise, I guess.
Exactly. I think the nice thing about working with the JRC and with the government of Catalonia, with a transformative innovation approach is the idea that we do everything collaboratively and we co-create the solutions, and the process itself is already a learning experience.
Carlos, thank you so much for joining us today and telling us about this interesting project.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
While Catalonia is testing new ways to grow and govern food close to the city, on the island of Malta, the challenge looks quite different, and so does the solution. Malta, a small island nation in the Mediterranean, faces unique pressures: limited land, dependence on imports, and the need to make local food systems more resilient, recognizable, and trusted. So, to tell us a little more about how Malta is addressing challenges, we're joined today by Mark Kassar, Senior Scientist of Malta's Food System Directorate. Hello.
Hello, good morning.
So let's start with the basics. What's a big challenge that Malta is trying to tackle when it comes to food security?
I'd just like to start, first of all. So hopefully everyone knows where Malta is, because it's a little island, archipelago, it's just south of Sicily, about 100 kilometers. So this is the start of the location of Malta, which is part of the problem which it has, because there's limited resources, and obviously everything can reach only by plane or mainly foods by sea. So that's the issue, that we import about 70% of all foodstuffs into Malta, which is, considering it's about 600,000 people, and in the next 10 years it will probably go up to about 700,000. There's an issue with regard to food security. I mean, it's 100 kilometers, but we cannot rely on roads like mainland Europe. We have to rely on the sea. So that's the issue which we have to counter and constantly think about with regard to food security.
So we're not just talking about farming. It's just we're talking about trying to work out the whole food system, right?
Yes. The whole issue, right? So the issue is that the agricultural land is slowly decreasing. The number of farmers that are interested or want to join the farming industry, if you like, is always decreasing, because young people are not interested in the farming because it's hard work, and the financial returns is less than if you go into IT or gaming or whatever. Financially, it doesn't make sense for a lot of young people to go into farming. There's a whole issue of and education-wise as well, to get the people interested in it and to get interested in growing the food, but also in consuming good quality food, yes, which is another way of we're hopefully going to reduce the dependency on importation of foods. Okay, so I looked it up. We have imports about 70%, so it's a lot, and it's 600,000 people. So what's going to happen is that the number of people is going to increase, but hopefully that importation of foods will stay the same, or hopefully if we do things right, we'll go down to maybe, high 60s, 65, and then we can become more sustainable in terms of the food.
So can you explain to us a little bit what you're looking into doing?
So we're trying to incentivize farmers by adding value to their products. So we had this January this year, we had our first PDO, Jbejna tan-naċ, it's called. It's like a sheep's milk cheese.
Okay.
And for Malta, we'd never achieved that milestone, if you like, that like certificate from the EU. There's another one, the matzit, it's like a blood sausage, which is also at commission level now and is being processed at the commission, DG Agri. And we're trying to get these products, so to give value to local produce, so that like that, the farmers, the beekeepers, actually even honey as well, they're applying, and hopefully we will increase value, people will buy it, and it will incentivize more farmers to go into the farming and to organic as well. So there's all these education.
So if I'm understanding well, we're talking about standards to maybe create to maybe improve or give more value to Malta's original products, right?
Yes. So we're there's a standard level, yes, hygiene rules and so on, animal health, animal welfare. But then to go into the quality products of PDOs and PGIs, there has to be extra criteria to go into an extra level of quality, so that you have the standard, the minimum, if you like, but then you have to go over and above. So what we're striving for or trying to achieve, well, we've achieved it with the PDO for Jbejna tan-naċ, and hopefully we get the PGI for matzit as well, which is the blood sausage, to give this added value. And this, like, it's like an activation energy, like in chemistry, to get all this going. And at the same, so it will increase awareness of the public to buy more of these products, and they know about feta cheese and about Parmigiano and so on, but a lot of people don't realize so much about Maltese local quality products. But again, this is all about awareness, and there was a public expo in May, and we talked about organic foods and about PDOs and PGIs. Thousands of people going into this public expo and raising awareness, and we had tasting sessions to get people aware and to get involved and to hopefully ignite some sort of interest for these products.
Actually, you just made me very curious about Malta's products now.
Okay, good.
So
you can probably search online as well. You can find these things, or better if you come and visit Malta as well. So
that would be great. That would be great.
There's many tourists every week coming here, so I'm sure there's a flight. You are in Seville?
Yes. Thanks so much. So one last question. What is your ultimate goal? What does success look for Malta?
Personally, I would like the importation of foods to go down to 60%, but the government is more like, we keep it at 70, and, with the increase of the population, it's also an increase because, the population is increasing. So the importation, we'll keep it at 70. We'll have these products which are at PDO. We have maybe one now, one upcoming, and to get the security of food security, to increase the stock of local produce, yes, so that we will be less dependent on the importation of foods. Then it will be a success, and the goal, which is what we're trying to achieve, to get that 5% organic, which is now 0.6 at the moment. So these are all the targets which we're trying to aim for, which is a bit difficult and daunting, but at the same time, it's a mountain, but step by step, we'll get there.
It seems ambitious, but it's good that you have your eyes put on this. Thank you so much.
Aim for the stars and you land on the moon, something like that.
Yeah, that's right.
It's one of the sayings or something. So hopefully we'll be getting there. Hopefully.
Thank you so much, Mark, for joining us and chatting about food security and food culture.
Okay. Thank you for inviting me. Ciao.
From experimental farms to national food strategies, we've seen how regions like Catalonia or Malta are innovating from the ground up. But what about the bigger picture? What connects these local actions to global change? And how do we bring more people, especially the next generation, into this conversation? To help us zoom out and dream big, we've spoken recently with a sustainability advocate, food systems influencer, and one of Europe's most engaging voices when it comes to rethinking what we eat, how we grow it, and why it matters. Joining us today is Sara Roversi, founder and president of the Future Food Institute and SDGs advocate. Welcome to Where It All Happens, Sara.
Thank you for the invitation. Thank you. I feel honored to be here with you today.
So you've traveled across Europe, visited farms, talked to scientists, chefs, policymakers, and school kids. What do you think people don't understand yet about innovation in the food system?
Probably the fact that everyone can take part of this transition and that everyone holds lots of power in its own hands. And so, what I'm basically focused on is really empowering people, letting them understand that every single choice they're taking related to food is a choice that is helping us to build a better future, or that is a choice that can also damage our body and the environment where we're living in, because we cannot live healthy in a sick planet.
And how do you usually come about this? How do you do this?
We work a lot with the communities, involving within the communities also policymakers, the one that sometimes are perceived like far away, disconnected, or let's say they are not perceived well sometimes from the community and the private sector. We involve entrepreneurs, we involve scientists, and we try to break the walls and connect them and let them work together. Let them build or rebuild trust. Trust between generations, elderly people with young people, with kids, and so on, needs to start to team up, as well as private and public, as well as big and small. So this is a little bit what we're doing. And this is, I think, a big role that all living labs around Europe and around the world can play.
And when you look at the EU level efforts, like, for example, the farm to fork strategy or the new place based innovation actions, what stands out to you?
When I see what Europe is doing, I see, as usual, huge potential, because I always try to see the positive side of the story. But I also see still untapped opportunities, and I see that now regulations and KPIs are not aligned with the world we're living in. I think that in the last decades, lots of things has changed. A lot of relationship between people within communities has changed. The digital transition has been a deep cultural transition. AI entering massively in our life is changing a lot our interaction between each other. But I see huge potentials, but also I'm a bit afraid, because we are not training humans to be able to really unleash the potential of AI, for example. And I am afraid that there's going to be lots of people suffering for that and not taking advantage of that. So I see that we as Europe, we are very lucky, probably more lucky than many others, but we need to run fast and focus our attention on bringing back the values and training humans to really be able to navigate the difficulties and the crisis and the transitions we are living in.
And talking about humans and people, how do you see citizens shaping the future of food?
I see citizens starting taking action, and I think that citizens plays a very, very fundamental role because sometimes awareness is better perceived by the private sector or the one that at the end takes the responsibility and change or move their choices. We are working on different lots of new projects focused on shifting diets and so on. I see that consumers can go faster and can nudge also the transition of the private sector. I see that sometimes policies goes slower than consumers' awareness and industry willing of change.
But is awareness easy? Because, of course, not everybody knows or cares about something that sounds big and complex like the food system. How do we get to those citizens? How do we make it personal?
We make it personal when we are able to explain very easily what's the advantage, why and how they're going to benefit from specific choice, what's going to be the cost of their health, how much they're going to gain if they're going to choose a specific food or say a specific change a specific habit. And I think that we need to be focused also on keeping the beauty, the taste, and the emotional side when we're talking about food, because sometimes we are just only focused on nutrients, we're just focused on numbers. And at the end of the game, we're humans and we need to feel ourselves and to feed ourselves also of emotions, love, care, and those things are sometimes left behind, but plays, I think, a very fundamental role, even much more than before now, where we are living in an era where we are struggling with AI and all the other things we know.
Sure, yeah, definitely. So, what gives you hope right now in this such a complex topic?
What gives me hope? Youth. Youth, even if also within youth there's a big polarization. Youth, they give me hope because I'm sure that they have many more tools than us to better understand and quickly understand where their effort is needed and what they can do to change the status quo, to save their world. Plus, lots of weavers, lots of people that are really now leaving behind ego and let's say the obsession for growth, but that they are very much focused on making things working. And so I now see lots of outliers in the different systems, both in ministries, in policies, in industries, in the startup movement, inside academics, good ones that are trying to join forces to enter in the new paradigm of life. That is what is needed now, because we know that lots of finance there, there's lots of money around, but overall in this last month, this money has been invested or are about to be invested in something that probably is not the most positive field for the future of our humanity.
Yeah, it stands out to me, the fact that you said youth, because it's true that it's what it gives us all hope. But how do we approach the young people that on topics so complex? Right now, everything is quick, fast. Any tips on approaching young people?
You know, we're working a lot with young people, and this for me became the major focus in the last the last years. And I decided to dedicate the majority of our energies, investment, and actions on youth. What we understood, also working with lots of creators and influencers, is that basically what we're doing that has been always very much focused on creating life experience, taking them out from the screen, out of their mobile phone and so on, and spend 1 week on the boat with the fishermen to better understand what is about to happen to the oceans, or spending time in a farm rather than studying just the numbers related to regen farming, understanding what's the economic and social and cultural impact of the adoption of regenerative models. Because now we know that science is giving us lots of, say, proof. But even if we have seen lots of proof, we haven't changed nothing massively in our lifestyle. So what we found out that is very powerful is that if you are involving then people in life experiences, taking them in what is the reality that we're touching and living, this can really help them to do this kind of deep mind shift. And this is absolutely needed, not only for youth, but for every generation. At the campus, where I am now, here in Polica, we are running boot camps on gastro diplomacy and, of course, on climate issues and related to any kind of other aspects related to food and nutrition. So we are deeply engaged into the Save the Ocean initiatives, regen initiatives, and so on. But when we involve people, both industry leaders, business people, farmers, but also youth, teachers, so we work with a very diverse spectrum of stakeholders and fellows, we always see the same pattern. We always see then people changing, then people think, thank you. I've been studying this for decades, but I never actually understood how deeply is interconnected our lifestyle with the impacts and so on. So I absolutely believe that the big shift can be done in involving people in life experiences. Of course, it seems like a drop in the ocean.
Yeah.
Because when people in the last decade has been pushing a lot on me, saying, okay, you need to scale up, you need to do numbers, digital education is going to be the future. Yeah, but they're not going to change. They're going to take some more notions. But if then you're able to inspire someone that is a community leader and you literally understand what is about to change, if they're going to adopt a specific model, if they're going to change the way they're farming, if they're going to change the way they're fishing and so on, then this person is going to go back in its own community and is going to become suddenly an advocate for that, implementing these principles and these values in his way of doing business. So this has been our way of trying to be part of the solution.
So note-taking, inspiration, and awareness come from life experiences. We're going to go with one last question. If you could give a message to you decision makers listening now, what would it be?
I wouldn't invest anymore in weaponizing Europe, but putting all our money really supporting communities, expanding and nurturing humans with values, creativity, science, experiences, and bring back what is needed for a healthy and good, prosperous humanity. This is what is needed. People are smart if you give them the opportunity really to interact and create those positive casual collisions that spark the future in a positive way.
Sara Roversi, thank you so much for your voice, for your energy, and your deep belief really in what's possible. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Today, we've traveled across Europe, from the fertile edges of Barcelona to the island heart of the Mediterranean, and into the digital spaces where food meets innovation. We heard how Catalonia is testing bold ideas, turning farmland into living labs that blend tradition and technology. We learned how Malta is working to build trust in its local food system, reconnecting producers and consumers through certification, collaboration, and cultural pride. And we were reminded that food innovation is about people, values, and vision. At the center of all, it's a simple but urgent idea, that food security is not only a question of supply, but of systems. Systems that must be made more resilient, inclusive, and responsive to the places we live. Across the EU's preparatory action on innovation for place-based transformation, regions are stepping forward to lead the change, experimenting, learning, and building futures where everyone has an access to safe, healthy, and meaningful food. Because innovation doesn't happen in isolation. It happens where it all happens, in our fields, in our streets, in our communities, and in our choices. Thanks for listening to Where It All Happens, a Territories in Action podcast. Until next time, keep your eyes on the ground and your mind on the future.